We are back. Welcome to another edition of Minor Obsession. We've been gone for about a week or so, and so is the football team. And now we're ready to talk about our next game on the road, coming back after a tough homecoming and playing another Florida team with another big-time coach with recruiting violations, FIU. Sean? Any thoughts, initial thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on the game. First, I would just like to point out as a point of procedure here before we get going. Our last podcast, Let's Go Oh No, where we were doing some prediction about the future of the Charlotte 49ers, one of us was a Debbie Downer and thought the men's soccer team wasn't going to make it to the top 5 in the country. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't me. And as of this week, they're officially number 5 in the country. So would just like to say in your face for a minute. And
just to be fair, though, don't call me a Debbie Downer because I said we weren't going to crack the top 5, but we were going to win the national championship.
Well, now I'm afraid that you could be wrong on that because you were wrong about the top 5. So, but I still feel good. I still feel good about it. So in your face, just had to say that first. Now on to football. I know this is going to be a good game. I feel good about that. Despite the tough homecoming, as you mentioned, the Niners are 2-3, 0-1 in Conference USA, so not a great way to start the year on Conference USA. But having that extra bye week right after your first Conference USA game, I think, is going to be really crucial to coming out and making it back to 500 on the USA side of things.
Well, it's a tale of two very similar teams. They're both 2-3. FIU had a beatdown game kind of like we had with Clemson. They had it with Tulane. Not that Tulane is Clemson level, but Tulane's pretty solid. They're currently 4-1 with their one loss coming to Auburn, who's a pretty good school. So, I mean, and then last week they played UMass and destroyed them, similar to how we destroyed them. They won 44-0 against UMass.
Yeah, but Tulane's missing their star offensive coordinator now, so he's over here. Alex Atkins, shout out.
Cheap plug. I like it.
But, yeah, I mean, I would agree with you. I think it's going to be a good game. We're averaging similar yardage, 423 on our side to 397 on their side. And that's split pretty evenly between rush and passing for both of us. And on the opposite side of the ball, yards allowed for defense, right about the same again, 392, 386. So it shakes up to be a pretty good matchup where it's not a toss-up in Vegas's mind right now, but is a toss-up in my mind in terms of how the cards shake out here.
Yeah, and very similar all the way around, too. Home record 2-1, road record 0-2, conference record, they've had one extra game. They're 0-2, we're 0-1. So, yeah, should be interesting. Bringing in Vegas, because, we like to talk about Vegas, and I think that's always pretty accurate, counting out last week against FAU. The spread right now for the game is -5.5 in favor of FIU. Normally, as Sean always likes to point out to me, there's a 3-point built-in at home advantage. So it's really like a field goal spread per se.
Yeah, the tough part is, that 3-point advantage gets built in because the hometown crowd often makes it hard for the away offense to run their game. And so that will be something to watch. It's a 56,000 seat stadium, so obviously a lot bigger than Jerry Richardson Stadium, but often is not very filled at all. So we'll have to see on TV what that looks like and if noise is a factor there to actually build in that true home field advantage, or if it's really more like a toss-up field goal either way type game for a neutral field because there's not too much noise going on. I'll say just on a personal note, I'm excited to be able to watch one on TV. I think there's probably a lot of fans out there who are diehard enough to drive to Boone, drive to Clemson. We saw a lot of the same folks going to the same games we were at. So it's basically been 5 weeks in a row of nonstop Charlotte football live and in person, which is awesome. But it was a little hot. And now we got 1 week off to just rest, and now I'm excited to cheer from the couch for once.
You don't think people are going to go to Miami? It's not like it's a bad location.
Oh, I think there'll be people there. There's always – Niners travel well. Either people who live down there show up at the game, or people who care enough to fly down there go. I just don't think the crowds will be quite as big as the Clemson and Boone because it's so much easier to get to those two places.
Sure. And honestly, I think we would have been there if we didn't have a wedding this Saturday. So, Reed, appreciate you.
But even with our latest downturn in scoring compared to our first few games, we're still first in Conference USA in scoring, which is impressive. 30th in the country, and first in Conference USA for rushing offense, and 28th in the country there. So even with a stretch of 2 tough games with Clemson and FAU, we still have enough offensive power, and specifically rushing power with Benny LeMay, where we're floating in that area, and Benny LeMay himself is floating in that area. 28th in the country for a running back in rushing yards, second in Conference USA. Yards per game, similar category there. Yards per carry, similar category. And then TDs, he's even at top 50 in the country. So he's making his case as the season goes on. He just seems to be getting better and better. Obviously, really tough to go up against a Clemson team and still put up big yards, but he managed to get a few runs there. So now that we're in full steam Conference USA, I'd look to see those numbers even uptick a little bit compared to what they have been the past week or two.
Yeah. Like we mentioned, the line is -5.5, and the over-under is 61 for this game. Not much movement thus far. But as we start analyzing the game, we talked a little bit about how we're doing for the season and how comparable the two teams are. Let's talk about the game. 5.5, 61. We've been pretty accurate thus far. FAU was a little off for me, a little half off for you. But we're in the same ballpark, predicting pretty well Charlotte games. So I will ask you first, Sean. -5.5, 61. What do you got on both of those? What's your score for the game?
Whew, that's a tough one. Not having actually had a chance to watch an FIU game this year because we've been at so many games in person, I would think that the over is actually pretty close to accurate. What'd you say it was, 61.5?
61 even.
61 even. I would think that that's pretty spot on. I would look for, in my mind, the score is probably going to be something like a 35 Charlotte, 28 FIU. That's what I'm going with.
So, repeat that again.
35-28. Charlotte wins.
35-28 Charlotte. So, you've got the over and Charlotte winning by a touchdown in a close game.
Yeah, and just barely on the over. I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of points, but both teams have scored pretty well so far this season, so I do think it's going to be more offensive happy than it is going to be defensive.
So, do you have a Charlotte domination and then a backdoor cover by FIU, or do you have like a close game where Charlotte ekes it out at the end with a touchdown?
No, I think it's a close game where I wouldn't say eked it out. I mean, at some point in the game, maybe second half, I could see a 2-touchdown lead in our favor, and then FIU scores there. One called a backdoor cover, I guess, since it still doesn't cover. But I think the propensity for allowing scoring that our defense has shown with the injuries it's had. I mean, FAU showed some things on game film that FIU is going to be able to look to take advantage of. And I imagine we are looking to plug those holes too. But the number of receivers who got behind our secondary and were just wide open was unbelievable, and I'm afraid that FIU is going to work to exploit that too. And we can do what we can to close up holes, but with injuries that we've talked about in the past, it's difficult at times. You got to find the next man up and figure out the best way to get that set up. So I would look for, especially since FIU this season has seemed to be fairly competent in the passing game, I would look for a few of those big plays where it's more of a back and forth, and we're going to be relying heavily on Benny LeMay, Chris Reynolds, Victor Tucker, Cameron Dollar, our offense more than anything else to be able to continue to drive down the field and put points on the board.
Fair. For me, I've got a less optimistic feel for this game. I don't know why. I just got like a gut reaction. And I'm thinking 31-17 FIU.
Debbie Downer shows up again, huh?
I know.
It's only been like 10 days since your last terrible take, and you're coming with a terrible take again?
Hey, I like to be proven wrong, so I hope I am.
What was that score?
31-17. So I've got the under 61, and I've got FIU covering.
Mm-hmm.
I think road games are interesting. I thought we really showed up against App. I thought Clemson was tougher. Obviously, two very different opponents. So we'll see how we do on the road in Miami. Longer trip, more comparable opponent. But what really concerns me, even though he only has one touchdown on the kick return game or on the punt return game this year, is Maurice Alexander on FIU. He's a really good kick returner, and he's averaging, on punt returns, 28.7 yards per return. And as we've talked about throughout the year, special teams, even though it has improved, we've definitely seen less of that. It's still kind of a concern for me. And they have one of the best punt returners, not only in Conference USA, but in the country. He has one touchdown, but like I said, he's averaging 28 yards per return. I don't like that. I could see some unfortunate scores from him.
That's fair. See, here's what gives me optimism here. I can see why you would feel that way. I'm not going to utter FIU's team player's name and do. It seems like you're turning into a FIU fanboy, huh? Isaiah Thomas used to work over there. You probably fell in love with him then. Now they got Butch Davis, and you're like, "Ooh, cool coach I know about." The star for the game for me, I think, is going to be seeing how healthy the offensive line looks after having a week off. We've got currently on the depth chart set up for this game, we've got Cameron Clark, who has tried and proven, and we've got some of our people back together. So we've got Dimitri Emmanuel, Jalen Fisher, Jalen Allen, and Malik Harkness. So if they look healthy and together, that's been a point of contention that has been difficult. We've had 4 different offensive lines starting so far this season out of 5, now 6 games. But giving them an extra week off, I think, could be huge. And so I think their impact on the game and allowing the holes to open up for Benny LeMay to run will really set up our ability to move the ball. I mean, Coach Healy talked about it after the FAU game. We got too pass happy. We got away from the run too early and got a little out of our comfort zone. And it all starts with the offensive line being able to open those holes and hold them open for a minute so Benny can run through. And so that's where I'm looking at the biggest impact of the game coming and why I think we've got a really good shot here because they've had a week to get healthy. And Cam Clark is a great leader to have on that line. So
what I'm looking at is going to be our Scotch tape defense and how they hold up, because we've had a lot of injuries. Now we've gotten a week to finally regroup and try to acclimate some players that were not starting into the starting lineup and get them more reps and kind of get them more in that cohesive play. We've kind of had people in and out of positions throughout. Just injuries have really bogged us down on defense. I'd be curious, and I think that's going to really set the tone, how we do in this game. early on? Does the defense look better, or do we still kind of struggle with those people in positions that they're not necessarily used to, or younger players in spots? So I think, to your point, the bye, I'm hoping is helpful for that, but I think we'll find out quickly. And if the defense looks good, I'm happy to change my prediction. I still think the under is going to be good.
That's fair. We've got some difference of opinion. We normally do. It's kind of shaken out where we're pretty close to even on the season between the two of us, so that's makes it safe where one of us is always right each week. Interesting note, Jeff Gimmel is listed as the starter right now at linebacker, but there's a or here, much like we saw with Brett Keane and Chris Reynolds to start the season. Luke Martin is listed as the or, so be interesting to see if Jeff truly gets to go or if his ankle problems are still flaring up. We saw him leave the game in FIU partway through after he tried to make a go at it and re-aggravated. So we'll see if this extra week is cleared up for him. I think that's obviously a healthy him is a huge asset on the field. A partially healthy him may still be a huge asset on the field. So we'll see if he's able to go. So I told you who my offensive stars of the game are. I'm going to go with the offensive line as a whole being the true impactors here. Do you feel like picking a Charlotte offensive player you think is going to have an impact, or do you just want to stick with your FIU player?
Well, as an FIU person, I would probably go with Reynolds. I mean, I'm just kidding. I mean that in all sincerity. Reynolds is my pick. I think Reynolds needs a big bounce back game here. And I believe in him. I think he's going to have a nice game. I think every team is focusing on the run, and the offensive line can definitely help that run game, but they're going to be stacking the box, and our passing game really needs to deliver to then give Benny some opportunity to really get after it on the running game. So I'm going to go with Reynolds.
Fun fact on Reynolds, he is currently leading Conference USA in points responsible for. He's responsible for 80 points of the points we've scored. That's 10 passing TDs and 3 rushing TDs and 1 2-point conversion.
That's impressive.
He's doing it already.
And our score at Clemson.
And neither of us picked him because we've got other people responsible, but just something to watch while I'm throwing out random stats for the offense here. Benny is 372 yards away from career 3,000 rushing. So, you think he gets 372 yards? That's a huge day. Or you think he at least makes it over halfway there?
My hot take is he doesn't even do it for the season. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think Benny definitely gets it. I'm going to give him 2 games, so I'll give him this game and the next game to get there.
Okay.
Which is still pretty aggressive.
It is. 372 is a lot even for 2 games to get. But if we stick to being run heavy, who knows?
All right, we're good at distributing the ball, though. Like, Benny gets his 100 yards, but we have so many good secondary backs that have really shown what they can do, like Ishawn Figger, who you love.
Yep. So moving on to defense here, you have a defensive player in mind you're looking to keep an eye on? I mean, let's maybe this week, since we both picked Alex Highsmith one of the last 2 times, and he's obviously crushing it still, 6 sacks on the season, which is a school record for a season already, and he's 6th in the nation right now. But outside of him, any defensive players you want to watch?
Well, I'm going to kind of steal your thunder, and I'm going to take the defensive line, excluding Alex Highsmith. I think it's time for them to step up. They've had moments, but Alex Highsmith's getting doubled on the end there, and I think they still need to get pressure on the quarterback. So I'm going to take the rest of the defensive line to single up Alex because they have to focus on everyone, other people getting sacks. I'm going with 3 sacks or more this game for the defensive line.
Let's not sleep on the D end on the opposite side, Marquise Watts. He's got 2.5 sacks on the season right now, which doesn't sound like anything compared to 6 for Alex Highsmith, but is still really good at this point in the season. So I like that pick. For me, it's got to be Henry Segura in the middle of the field as the linebacker opposite of Jeff Gimmel if he's able to go. He's got 32 tackles on the season so far. He had that awesome pick 6 at UMass, which Alex Highsmith definitely assisted on, getting the pressure on the quarterback. I'd look for him to really make an impact here and make himself known. He also has 1 sack on the season too, which is nice. So continuing those good numbers and being a big impactor, making big plays, getting some takeaways for us. So I'm going Henry Segura all the way.
I like it. So final predictions. Sean's got the Niners winning 35-28. So for those gamblers out there listening, that means he's got Charlotte covering the 5.5. Sean, would you take the money line or would you still take the points?
No, I'd take the money line. Are you kidding me? You're asking the wrong guy. You're asking the guy who just assumes we're going to win to start with. So if you want to safety cover it and hope that we lose by a field goal, fine, go ahead. But I'm not in that boat.
I don't have the money line stats in front of me, but I'd guess it's probably like plus 180 or something in that ballpark.
For sure. If it's 5.5, I would guess you're about right.
So
I actually
Charlotte
got it right here. Quick enough. It's plus 170 right now.
Okay, so that's pretty accurate. I like my little thumb approach. So Sean's got the Niners plus 5.5 and the over. Says don't be soft. Take the money line because it's a lock.
Well, and actually, can I throw in an extra layer of complexity here?
Sure.
You know, I like to watch the lines move as a kind of indicator of where people are feeling. So the line for the book I'm looking at right now actually opened at -7 FIU and transitioned all the way down to -5, with money being pretty evenly distributed, or at least percentage of tickets being distributed basically 50-50 between the two teams. So that tells me more dollar value is actually coming in on Charlotte, causing the line to move down. So opened at 7. People generally influence it to get a lot closer, and like we say, it's always very close in the end. For somehow, I don't get it, but interesting to see. I don't think I realized it opened at 7.
Wow. For those people that aren't gamblers, I apologize. As Sean went real deep into his process there. But yes, great insight for those that are. Probably really enjoyed that. With me, I've got the FIU winning the game 31-17 and under and a non-Charlotte cover. This is, I just want to mark it, the first time that either of us has gone against Charlotte in the game.
You picked a real great time to do it. 0-1 in Conference USA. You're choosing us to go 0-2 in Conference USA, and 2-4 on the season, making it a lot more difficult to make it to our first ever bowl game. It's a pivotal time in the season.
And I'm not rooting for this. I'm just stating my opinion. I want to make sure that we're fair and unbiased, and we continue to give you the proper analysis you deserve. So I hope I'm wrong. I think I'm right. If you want to make money, you should probably follow me. But if you want to bet with your heart, which I normally do, follow Sean to the green.
And instead of shouting out our social media stuff, I'm going to go through Scott's phone number, home address, social media accounts, so that you can tell him what you think about this hot take of FIU blowing us out 31-17.
It's not a blowout.
I mean, that's not. It depends on how that scoring happens. Like you asked me, in your mind, is it FIU puts up 30 in the first half and then just takes their foot off the pedal and we score 17, or is it back and forth for a little bit and then the fourth quarter is just not exciting in our favor? Yeah, see, there you go.
I don't want to keep burying my hole here. I don't think it's going to be 30-0 or anything like that, but I think our last touchdown that I have 17 on is probably a garbage time TD when the game's already over.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. Anybody who wants his home address to, send a bag of poop or whatever you want to do, I got it for you.
Well, I hope when we come back on Sunday that you're able to tell me how stupid and wrong I am.
Yeah, I'm going to, for sure, because I know this one's going to turn in our favor. there's too much riding on this game in terms of complexity for how the rest of the season goes, and we've had an extra week to prepare on a team that we know fairly well and have players who've played against these same players for the past several years. I think that gives us the leg up.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I think this will definitely show a lot about Coach Healy, because you notice on bye weeks how teams come out. Some teams come out flat, some teams come out real strong.
Very true.
And that's normally coaching related. So this is a good test for Coach as well. So I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Coach Healy prepped the crap out of these kids and we get a nice W and the scores are reversed. I still think the under's a lock either way, but maybe Charlotte 31, FIU 17.
All right, well, we will see how it shakes out. Hopefully y'all are around to watch it. It's on ESPN Plus for anybody who wasn't aware of where it's televised, so you need to pay the $4.99 to have the extra subscription for ESPN, but it is available. Game time's at 7, so looking for some exciting action.
Absolutely. Well, we will be back on Sunday with our post-game analysis, more of the other sports this coming Tuesday. And as always, and I'm not going to be wearing blue, wear green.
And go Niners.